Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. Your host, JP John Poz. With me today, very special guest. You may know him as Kizarny from the WWE. He's, of course, Mr. Sinn Bodhi. Sinn, welcome. How you doing?
Hey, buddy. How are you?
Doing good. What's going on in your world?
I'm just trying not to suplex my device here. I'm a pretty turn the other cheek kind of patient guy when I'm not surrounded by ropes and turnbuckles, but I have been known to frisbee a laptop or two into the ocean or drop kick a computer or two. So I'm right on the edge of this stuff. Yeah.
Right.
And here we are.
Right there with you. Hey, technology. I'm right there with you.
Here we are. Well, I see all this stuff like, oh yeah, we'll see like these like driverless cabs and whatever. And like, meanwhile, my voice text can't get anything right. How am I supposed to trust getting into a car with no driver? Like nobody ever saw Terminator?
Right? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Just
are we allowed to cuss on here? I'm just in a cussing mood, but I won't.
Oh yeah. Cuss
I'm professional enough to withhold if need be. But
oh yeah, cuss away. Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet technology. Fuck.
So what's going on in your world? What are you up to?
When I came inside to get you on the lasers of the internet, I was outside watering my ducks and chickens and goats and everybody. And I realized how quickly the podcast was zooming in. So I tricked my wife and I tagged out to my wife and she's finishing it up right now. So
nice.
Anything I can do to shirk responsibility as a giant child, aka professional wrestler.
Yes. Anything wrestling related though that you're up to besides the farm there?
Oh yeah, I mean I'm always like I fly in and out and I wrestle, wherever, wherever the promoters are paying, I'm playing. I'm kind of a hired gun in my old age, and I'm sort of like the Bull Durham of pro wrestling. I fly out someplace, I wrestle some young guy, some bad guy, some good guy. Lighten up, loosen up, tighten up, do this, more of this, less of this, blah blah blah. I live to fight the next day and the next day and the next day. And then I teach on the regular at Future Stars of Wrestling in Las Vegas when I'm not at my little ranch here on the edge of Death Valley, about an hour out of Vegas. And then sometimes what I do is I'll do like match critiques online for some of the guys. I started doing that on that snake pit during the pandemic when the lovely powers that be told us we could not go out of our houses and feed our families. So, yeah. So I think I'm ornery today between the technology and then just thinking of all the real life stuff. It's getting me fired up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And working Little Rocky Mountain Pro too, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. I just got back from 2 days of Rocky Mountain Pro. And then, excuse me, my allergies are kind of kicking my butt right now. From after Denver and Rocky Mountain, I flew to South Carolina and wrestled for a really great show and had a fun old time with the four-way monsters match, kind of a match with three longtime buddies, PCO, Cahagas, and Kevin Thorne. So that was fun. Yeah,
wow,
always
awesome.
wrestling, always doing something wrestling oriented. And then when I'm not doing that, I make like the custom wrestling figures for people. So kind of adopted
those
that
are awesome.
hobby. Oh, thanks, man. That was sort of a hobby turned side hustle in the pandemic, and just kind of keep on doing it. So,
yeah, I always look at those like, man, those are so cool. Just I don't know, they're awesome. I love when the people make custom figures. But yours look great. Some of them out there don't look quite as good. I mean, to be honest.
Well, I appreciate that. I just was today. I was designing the dynamic dudes, Shane Douglas and Johnny Ace for
nice
for somebody.
Wow, how random. That's a random one.
I get all sorts of weird stuff. So like if I post something that I make because I wanted to make it, 9 out of 10 times people go, oh, that's cool, but could you make me or my tag partner, or like I'll get like wives or husbands saying, hey, could you make my husband, he's a wrestler, or my boyfriend or my girlfriend or whatever. So I'll get a lot of that kind of stuff, a lot of like surprise orders, and mostly like indie guys and girls that just haven't had the opportunity to have an actual main line of figure made. But then usually too, and then like, so like, if I make if I make Gorilla Monsoon just because I felt like making it, then I'll get, people will, order, a handful of like indie wrestlers, and then maybe somebody else wants somebody else throughout the annals of history. We'll say, hey, can you make so-and-so? And I'll say, yes, I can. And whether I made them already or not, that doesn't make a difference. Sort of sky's the limit.
Didn't somebody complain about one of the ones you made? I could have sworn I saw that. And you're like, no, I made that. There was some sort of issue, like somebody was saying that was their figure or something, and I don't know. I'm trying to remember what it was, but it was like you were like, I literally made that with my own hands. Like, that's not a real figure. Like, it's a custom. I made it. I'm trying to remember what it was.
Well, I think everybody seems to be pretty happy with what I made for them. I don't know. I mean, the closest thing I can think of that maybe was so I made a set of Freebirds, which I grew up as a big Freebird fan.
Oh yeah.
And then I sent a picture to Michael Hayes. I know Michael. Michael knows me. I sent him a picture on his Twitter, and I don't think he understood. I think he thought I'd like to toot my own horn and say that I think he thought it was like a mass produced figure because they were pretty darn good, if I do say so myself, and I do.
Yeah. So it was Hayes. Yeah.
And then and he got mad and was like, "Well, that's my stuff, or else my lawyer, blah blah blah." Like, he has my phone number. He could have just called me, but he went crying on Twitter instead of like just calling me. We would have been laughing in 5 seconds, I'm sure, if we had just talked. And it kind of got me mad. Like, I'm a really respectful guy, but like at the same time, especially the older I get, just the less patience I have for people being prima donnas or whatever. Like, I'm thoroughly respectful of the Freebirds, but like, give me a fucking break. Like, I sent the thing to the guy. Wasn't trying to do anything behind his back. Like, I tagged him in it.
Yep.
And I just don't think he understood what it was. I think he thought it was like a toy from like China or something, like a Walmart. And he didn't sign off on it. Like, I just made a piece of fan art and sent it to him to see if he liked it. And then he got bent out of shape. And I talked to Terry Gordy's daughter, Miranda, who's a very sweet girl. And she kind of said like, "Oh, I think Michael he's just a little bit bent out of shape because he didn't get any royalties from that Iron Claw movie. And then all of a sudden he saw your figures and they look really good. And I think he just thought somebody was making these behind his back." And I said, "That's not the case." And I called that MFer every day. I called him and texted him every day for like 2 weeks straight. He didn't. So quick to run to Twitter and run his yap. And he didn't pick up the phone like a man ever. So this makes me not want to be a Freebird fan anymore, at least not a Michael Hayes fan. So I'm not here to pick a fight or cause any drama with anybody, but at the same time, like, you want to act like a ding-a-ling, then I'll call you out on it. So
yeah, definitely. You're not too good there.
And it's just sucked because I was wanting to show him something nice that I thought I put a lot of effort in. I thought he would have liked it, but him and his obtuse little ego just couldn't fathom that somebody was a fan of his and made a piece of fan art. I don't know how he doesn't comprehend that, but
right. Yep.
But, bad street. So there you go.
I did have the Galoob figure back in the day, the very rare Galoob figures of the Freebirds.
Yeah, that was a super rare one. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, him and Jimmy Jam. Those were very, very, very rare. Which
I foolishly sold them though.
Not to be an instigator or anything, but I have that file that I can 3D print anytime I want, Michael Hayes. So there you go, brother. Like, you want one? I'll print one and paint one for you on my own dime, motherfucker. So there you go.
Yeah. Come on, PS. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Outrageous.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't want to come on here and bitch and moan and be a prima donna. I'm a big Freebird fan and I'm a very respected guy in the industry, but at the same time, especially these days, just with the big upside down, planet Earth is just going bonkers. Figure, don't stand up for yourself. Well, what are you going to do? The last thing I want to do is fight with somebody that I respect, but if they're not worth respecting, then I'm going to change my mind real quick.
True. What's your favorite figure that you've done?
I haven't painted one yet. My buddy painted one. I made two. I made one for my friend and I made one for me, but it's a hillbilly Jim and he's like holding a pig. It's kind of like a LJN meets like the Hulk Hogan rock and wrestling kind of thing. Like, so it's like, looks a little bit more like LJN style. Like, it's not so cartoony as the rock and wrestling. And it was just a fun one for me to make. And maybe a Jesse Ventura. I made a Jesse Ventura that's pretty cool. Like you say so myself. From it's where he's in that pink tuxedo from like the wrestling album. There's a bunch of silly ones that I made.
Yep, I remember that.
It's always a big machines mark, so I made the machines. I keep on sniffling. I'm sorry, like my allergies are driving me crazy. I don't mean to sound like I got cuties or whatever.
No
maybe
problem.
I do have cuties, but I don't know.
Did you make Hulk machine? That's the question.
I didn't, but I was thinking about making the Hulk machine and the Piper machine. I thought that would be funny to do. Just haven't got around to it.
Yeah, just I don't know, just so cool. Obviously, some people have a complaining problem about it, but they have very, very cool stuff. I love that, like customization.
I made a.
People can do so much more stuff.
I can look into my studio from here. I'm sitting in my office, and I can kind of look through into I got a painting studio, and I have my 3D printing area, just because I don't want to keep those sort of toxic fumes away from my critters and stuff. So I have it like in another area. I don't know. I made Missing Link was a fun one that I made.
Cool.
Again,
Yeah.
Why can't I think of the words? Get dropped in my head for a living. Gorilla Monsoon was a fun one. Just made a Tito Santana. That was cool. I made a Killer Khan. I made another artist had designed sort of his version of the long lost prototypes for the LJN. And so I was printing those, and I thought those turned out pretty cool. There was like Khan and Tito and Smash, and who else? There's a Mean Gene variant and a Tito variant and all that stuff.
Barbarian, right? Weren't they supposed to make a Barbarian too?
Yeah, I made a Barbarian as well. I made a Barbarian and a sort of an updated Warlord that kind of matches that Barbarian. I was just making some of those. Grab a tissue here. I'm gonna fly off my screen and blow my nose and come right back, and I'm right here.
Yeah.
You can hear me blowing my nose amongst baby dogs barking and chickens clucking. So I'm gonna squeeze. And I'm back. And I'm back. Sorry about that. Sorry, had to drain my brain of its knowledge. I apologize.
As my computer.
It's like the transitional season here, and we're in like the high desert on the edge of the mountains in Death Valley, so the seasons are kind of harsh and bonkers.
As my computer finally restarted here, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
There you are. Now I can hear you. I couldn't hear you for a moment. Sorry, I had to fly off the screen and blow my nose.
No, it was good because I was able to switch to my other computer here because it wasn't starting up for some reason.
Well, that's weird.
It took forever. It literally took like a half hour to start up. How crazy is that?
When I was turning my device on, it was doing this weird like optimizing whatever. I'm like, what is going on? It doesn't seem so optimal when it took like 10 minutes to start up again. It's my heat with technology. Not a fan.
And
the more I think I was always like a progressive thinking guy growing up, and I thought progression should equal convenience, pricing, lack of labor, just the stuff that would make life easier, not more difficult.
Yep.
It seems to me that technology is making things more arduous and not easier. I am not a fan.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Now, going back to wrestling and your wrestling days, I think a lot of people remember WB run, Kizarny. Is that what a lot of people bring up to you? Like, hey, what happened with Kizarny? And what was that all about? A lot of people bring Kizarny up to you?
Yeah. People, the three things that people ask me about all the time, like for years and years and years and years, is, whatever happened to the Kizarny stuff? Whatever happened with New Church? Like, if and when was the New Church ever going to do something again, or what was Vince McMahon really like? Those were the three sort of questions I would always get.
So
to answer those, hey, what's up, Rambo? What's going on? We rescued it a few months ago, a little blind poodle, and we didn't know what his name was because the shitbag that owned him last got arrested and didn't tell anybody that he had a dog in the place. So this poor little dog was left to starve. And I guess somebody found him at the last minute and brought him to a kill shelter, and they started kind of feeding him or whatever. And then so my wife and I rescued him, and so we didn't know what his name was. So we just started saying all these different names like Dave, Bill, Fido, Spot, whatever. And all of a sudden, the first thing that he sort of jumped on was Rambo. So long story short, I have an awesome, sweet, smart, cute little fuzzy little poodle Pomeranian thingy, whatever the heck he is, named Rambo. He's blind, and so that's who was just barking up there. He was You heard my wife walk in. So he's like, "Who's there? What's going on? What's going on?" Keeping me safe.
Great name, though. I mean, come on. Those Rambo movies are the best.
That's it. That's it.
Stallone is the man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
he's the man. Jeez.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sorry, you were asking me something, and I just my little dog sidetracked me.
About the Kizarny character and how that kind of came to
Yeah,
fruition.
so I chose to like look like that. The name was Vince McMahon's idea. Speaking Carney, I could speak Carney, but it was Vince's idea for me to speak Carney, and he asked me if I could speak Carney, and I said, use this as like Kizan, and he said, all right, well, good, you're gonna be Kizarny. That's Carney for Carney. You get it, kid? And I'm like, yes, sir. I sure do.
Yep.
And that's how that went. And then I think like all the producers, the writers, even the fans, I think they all took me as a heel, but Vince was like just dead set on me being a babyface. So he was sort of like, we were all kind of having this sort of weird uphill battle of like, I just was happy to be there. You know, I'm just a childhood fan, you know, living my dreams. So I don't want to piss anybody off. And at that stage of the game, I was very like just enamored, rose-colored glasses on, like, you know, just, oh, they want me to beat Kizarny. Okay. You know, I never even thought about it as like getting saddled with something. Rambo, easy, bro. Easy. It's just your mom, man. My wife is like this tiny little thing. So I think maybe my little blind poodle thinks she's also like another little Pomeranian, because my wife is this little like hornswoggle size, like just tiny little thing. So.
Oh my God.
Yeah. She's like the chicken hawk to my foghorn leghorn. I think my little dog Rambo is mistaking her for another Chihuahua that's running away. We have another little rescue too at the same time, little Rambo, and this little girl Ellie Mae that's a little old Chihuahua with cysts and stuff. So we're just where are you going? Okay, love you. My wife's out to make an honest living while I am here playing with toys and jump around in spandex. Yes.
That's what happens. That's what happens in the business.
What happens? She's the real life. She's the adult in the relationship. I am the professional giant child. I have a PhD in recess. I know you are, but what am I? You know, all of the childish things. That's my jam.
I love it. It's just so interesting with Vince, though, that he wanted Kizarny to be a babyface. Seems like a heel character.
I would think it would be a heel, but I mean, he's the billionaire and I'm not. So I'm like, okay, you're the boss. He's signing the check. So I'm like, okay. The way I thought about it was, it's easier to start as a heel. It's much easier to be hated. Let me perform, let me do a good job, and then let people enjoy hating me. And then if I'm an entertaining heel, pretty soon I can organically flip into a babyface, no sweat. But when you force somebody down their throats, that's a much harder sell. And I think they had me like Vince just kind of spat me out because he says, "Why isn't he on TV? Just find a place for him." And so they just stuffed me into that losing streak of MVPs. So it was psychologically kind of odd storytelling because, you know, he's a heel on a losing streak. So people are starting to feel bad for him. So he's getting empathy and he's turning babyface because of that empathy. And then here comes me who looks like a heel, you know, and I think like the match that we had, the match was fine. It was an okay match just for match sake. But it's not the match we needed. It's not the match I put together. Again, weirdly that I was making the dynamic dudes today, but Johnny Ace put that match together. Let me tell you, kid, I know how to get guys over. This is what we're going to do. And I just said, yes, sir, I'll do whatever you want to the best of my capabilities. So he put together stuff that I might not have necessarily done on my own accord, but, you know, I'm a team player and I'll do it when I'm told, you know, it's fine. It's just like if you work at Kmart and they tell you, go clean up aisle 5 and you say, I don't think so, motherfucker. I'm just going to go and collect some carts. They're going to go, yeah, fuck off. You're fired. So like WWE and big companies, wherever, the same thing. You know, like it's a business. You're there to play a role and you're there to do what they want you to do. And that's that. So I said, okay. And then, but I'm an old school guy. I was trained old school. So like I'm listening, me and MVP both are listening to the crowd and we needed to get moving. And Johnny kept on getting on the horn on the referee and saying like, get back in the hold. And I'm like, it's just going to lull these people to sleep if I sit in the hold there. I'm just going to piss them off. And so I just was like, la, 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 I can't hear you. And I got up and I blew into a spot and I just called the spot. Whatever, started getting going. I'm like, we got to get moving. And so So, I mean, the match was okay, but again, it just wasn't the match that we needed to have. Like, I needed to kick the shit out of somebody in 2 minutes. I did not need to squeak a 9-10 minute victory over a guy on a losing streak. And not, again, no disrespect to MVP. He's an awesome athlete. He's an awesome dude and great character and all that stuff. So I just mean in the sense that he was in this losing streak storyline. Like, so just for perception purposes, it's not the best character to pair off with. Like, I should have just went in there and beat the crap out of Funaki or Jamie Noble or somebody, you know, or somebody, you know, somebody likable or somebody smaller than me, and that would have been that. And I gave him a lot of suggestions. Like, I was very polite about it, but I'm like, look, I appreciate that I'm the weird guy, so you know, I know me, so I'm happy to give you guys suggestions. You guys being the writers, and you know, just to make your life easier, you're being the writers. And they were like, oh yeah, for sure. And like, they never took a single idea I ever had. So, and I could tell you that equivocally because I never did any of the ideas that I pitched. Like, I had different ideas, and they gave me a digital Ferris wheel. So I'm like, okay, digital Ferris wheel is better than some guys have gotten. You know, I'd rather have a digital Ferris wheel than nothing. So there's that. But I think I could have come up with some clever stuff, and I did. I gave them a bunch of stuff, and they just didn't use it. So there you have it.
Why though? Like, were they that like narrow-minded? They just don't want to use somebody
I don't
else's
know.
stuff.
I just think, well, if the wrestlers are doing the writers' jobs for them, then what do they need a job for? You know, so I think they're very like Jake the Snake. He's my like main like mentor. Like, I've had various teachers. Like Ron Hutchinson was my basics coach, and then Al Snow and Rip Rogers kind of really gave me like the next level of education. And then Dr. Tom and Dusty Rhodes gave me kind of the next level after that. But Jake was sort of my consistent mentor. And Jake was just like, and he was saying stuff that I kind of understood and kind of didn't understand at the time. It's almost like a parent telling a kid, like, you'll understand when you're older kind of a thing. He was just like, he goes, your ideas are so good. Like, you're just going to piss people off because they can't keep up with your ideas. And not to sound like an asshole, but like, you know, there's guys that have better abs. There's guys that are taller, bigger, that can jump higher, whatever. But I'll creatively go toe to toe with anybody, you know. So, and I think Jake was just, I guess Jake kind of realized that before I did. And I think my ultimate compliment in pro wrestling ever was Jake telling me that I was the most creative person he has ever met, and I was even more creative than him. He had just had the chance to show it, and I did not. So if I can hang my hat on anything, I'll take that. That is my mental championship belt right there.
Wow, so, super high praise.
Yeah. How does it get any better than that, you know? Or like Dr. Tom, the coach of coaches, like, who I respect, you know, to the moon, and we're good friends to this day. There's been a couple times where we've talked on the phone. Like, we talk on the phone all the time, but there's been a couple times where he'd call me and go, what do you think about this? And he'd throw something at me, and I just would mark out thoroughly, thinking in my head, like, did the good doctor just ask little old me for advice? Like, holy shit. Like, I'll hang my hat on that as well, you know? And so like breaking down stuff in seminars or whatever, or producing backstage and having other producers go, holy crap, I never thought about it like that. You know, sort of makes me understand what Jake was trying to tell me, you know? And so I won't say that I trained a lot of guys from A to Z, but I've got my fingerprints on a lot of wrestlers, and I'm very proud of that. And I'm sure they all would have been good with or without me, but I'd like to think that some of my fingerprints sort of help them, you know, put a little extra ketchup on their burger, so to speak, made them a little tastier. And and that's got to do with psychology. And like I would always joke and say, there's no such a thing as wrestling psychology, just psychology applied to wrestling. So you know, think about, like, you know, when you go to a movie and you watch a movie and you can get behind the good guy and you can't stand the bad guy, you just want to see that bad guy get his ass kicked or whatever. Like, to me, that's a good wrestling match. Like, Star Wars is my favorite wrestling match of all time. Intergalactic Ricky Morton, you know, fighting his way from the bootstraps all the way across the galaxy, uphill to the main event with a fresh Darth Vader waiting. And he's got to buy through the whole thing. He's fresh. He's chilling out in his bajillion-dollar space mansion Death Star thing, just waiting for this little intergalactic country boy to earn every little last bit of, you know, overness as he treks through the galaxy doing all these things. I thought that's an awesome wrestling match. So I don't look at matches in terms of spots. You know, I'm not not that crotchety old guy that thinks, oh, I don't like these high spots. Blah, 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 blah. I'm not that guy at all. I like high spots just fine. But I like when whatever it is that we do contributes to our story. You know, like I don't work for my high spots. My high spots work for me. So like whatever I'm doing is going to facilitate the story and showing like I'm this, this, and this, and my opponent is that, that, and that. Whatever that might be on any given night, it's always a changing thing. Like I kind of laugh with some young, I'll walk into a locker room and some young guy will be like, what's your comeback? And I just kind of look at him sort of like a dickhead and just be like, I don't know. How am I supposed to know until I'm out there and see what your output is? What are you doing to me? Like, what am I, you know, are you killing me? Am I doing okay? Or, you know, what's going on here, you know? And, so many different factors on any given night. Like I like to kind of feel things and so forth. And that's maybe the old school in me and the eccentrist in me, but I just kind of like to feel things out. I can map out stuff if my dance partner really, really, really requires it, but I way prefer just to kind of feel as much as I can possibly feel out there. I appreciate there's times to have an A and a B and a C and a, you know, whatever, and go home, whatever, but the more we can go organically, just go get to it. I think it reads better for the fans. They'll appreciate it better. And it's a lot more fun like that.
It's funny. Just saw something with Hulk Hogan talking about The Rock, WrestleMania 18. And he said Vince wanted them to rehearse the match. And then Hogan told Rock, he goes, we need to call in the ring, brother. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, we got to feel the crowd. And he's like, thank God. He goes, there was some stuff that we worked out. He goes, but thank God we called in the ring because obviously he had to go heel, I had to go face. And they wanted to, feel it out.
I totally agree. And like for that, like, I don't mind taking some time and talking about what I would call like an action sequence. Like there's some kind of domino effect where you need to literally be on this knee, looking that way, doing this in this exact part of the ring, and this other guy, and there's this whole domino effect of, very much like an action sequence in a movie. But as far as ducking and blocking and taking hip tosses and body slams and headbutts and back rakes, like if you have any skills whatsoever, you should be able to do that in your sleep. So like if we're going to build some certain thing, okay, no problem. And that's like what you would consider like an old school high spot, like in the old jargon sense. Like nowadays, high spot is just sequence of moves.
Right.
Where back in the day, chain wrestling was what they now refer to as a high spot, like a sequence of moves. Otherwise, they just wrestled. They didn't call it chain wrestling. It was just wrestling. And then chain wrestling was having a preconceived series of moves. That's what a spot is today. Back in the day, the high spot was like a high point of the match, like something important that was happening. So those are the things that I like to, like a high pinnacle point in the match is what I don't mind discussing. And I'm very much like Jake like that. Like Jake would always say, like, if you must, paint a bit of a picture on the front end, and know where you're going and know how to get out. And everything else you can find along the way. And there's definitely formulas to doing that, but that was essentially him. Like just as long as you had a finish, and even sometimes you don't need that. Like I wrestled enough in like the Mid-South area, and that stuff was people far more talented than I was when I was doing it on the regular. And you just learned how to work, and you learn how to work off the fly. Like there was guys that I met, like literally locked up. How you doing? Nice to meet you. And call a finish. Oh, the promoter wants you over, wants me over, wants this stuff. All right. And we found everything and the finish out there. Like, and it's not that I'm not a better wrestler than all these guys that can't do that these days. I just was led and trained and groomed in locker rooms with guys that could do that on the regular. That's just such an elusive thing these days. Like hardly anybody does it. And it's not that guys these days couldn't do it. They're just not guys showing them how to do it. They're used to memorizing all this stuff, and that's what they know. That's what they know. Like Lexi King, Pillman Jr., I wrestled him a few times on some shows like in Alabama and different places. And I said to him, I was like, look, kid, let me do you a favor. Let me just take you on the fly. And he said something really cool to me. He was just like, he goes, well, I'm kind of nervous to do that, but I think that's something my dad would really want me to do. And I thought, fuck yeah, so let's go. And so the first time we went, we came back giggling, and that kid is a stud athlete. Like he's a racehorse. He comes back huffing and puffing, giggling. He's like, man, he goes, you're twice my age, and you blew me up before we ever even got to the heat. He goes, and I felt like I was in a real fight that didn't hurt. He goes, I've never been in a match ever that felt anything like that. I said, that's called working. That's like work rate, like where they put some pepper on stuff, but the lost art of making it look vicious, but taking good care of each other so you can feed your family the next night and the next night and the next night. And so he was just like, man, he goes, the only other person I ever even came close to doing something like that with was Sean Spears. I'm like, cool, help break him in too. You know, so he's like, well, fuck, let's go. And so every time I'd wrestle him, that's what we do. And he would always just come back, oh man, when you did this, when you thought of this, I didn't know you were going to do this, and then you did this, that was, you know, and you could just see his head as a hornet's nest where ideas just flying out of his head, you know. And so it's just somebody leading another guy, showing you how to do that. And again, when I came up, it was guys that did that for me. And so I really want to sort of make it important to do that for other guys. Maybe last year or so, my timelines are crappy, but Ricky Morton was on his Facebook, and he was just like, you know, here's food for thought for all these coaches, the younger coaches and whatever. If you can't work on the fly, you maybe shouldn't be coaching. And I know there's a lot of guys that are coaches that cannot work on the fly. That blows my mind. And I'm not here to heal on anybody. I just think, like, you would think they would practice or something, you know. But it is such a lost art to be able to do that. Like back in the day, like that's why those matches are like the stuff of legend, like Macho Man and Steamboat, or Jake and Macho, or Flair and Steamboat, or Hogan and Andre, and all these different things, Piper and Hogan, and all these things. Like, it seems so organic because it was chaos, and they went out there, you know, crazy, eccentric alphas going out there, putting on a giant show, you know, mentally lighting themselves on fire for the audience. They weren't thinking about, oh, I got to do my Hurricane Run, oh, I got to do my super kick, oh, I got to do my back rake. They went out there thinking, all right, I'm going to give them the best Roddy Piper I can be. I'm going to give them the best Macho Man I can be. I'm going to give them the best Ricky the Dragon I can be, Jake the Snake, Ric Flair, so forth. You know, so like that's how I feel. Like when I get to a show, you know, whether I'm a good guy or bad guy, I am me. Whether I'm wrestling guys smaller than me, equal size, bigger than me, I'm thinking, how will Sinn Bodhi, you know, feel about being in this particular situation, with this particular dance partner, on this particular night, in this particular city, you know, and tell a story. High spots be damned, like whatever high spots we need. Like, just because I have a hammer and a screwdriver and some duct tape in my toolbox, well, what do I need? What am I building tonight? What tools do I need tonight? You know, my toolbox is my toolbox, but what do I need to access? You know, if I'm going to work on your leg, I don't know that I need to get my Hurricane Rana in tonight, you know, and so forth like that.
Well, too bad Johnny Ace was giving you the wrong advice and the wrong stuff to do. Come on, Ace, you know better than that.
Well, I mean, he gave me stuff that was okay to do, but it just was, it was out of context for what I personally think that story needed to be. Like, I think, my humble opinion, little old me, thought that I needed to come out and kick the shit out of somebody, short and sweet, just quality, not quantity, you know. But again, I was in a just a fine match. It was good. It was a good match. It just wasn't what we needed that night. So I think we need to be masters of knowing, what do we need tonight? You know, maybe the next night that would have been just peachy, but you know, so there you have it.
Were you surprised though? Like, the run was so short. Like, you know, you get released. That, like, were you surprised by that? Because it's kind of like, if they could have done a little bit more.
I think like it was politics that got me. Like, I was politics adjacent. It wasn't anything that I did. I think I was just collateral damage to some other personal politics, that I was friends with somebody that, you know, had an argument with Vince or whatever, and I paid the price.
Really?
I think it's like breaking up with a girlfriend or a boyfriend. You have no closure. Like, I couldn't tell you to this day, but I can tell you, I've been back there a bunch of times as a guest coach, so I'm good enough to coach their guys. You know, like, nobody ever gave me any grief about my work rate. Nobody ever gave me any grief about my attitude. Nothing. Like, everybody, I was always friendly and polite to people. I always busted my ass. Producers seemed happy with me. The fans seemed happy with me. Like, I did a ton of like live events, and it was either against Chavo or MVP or Ryan Braddock or Vicky Guerrero's bodyguard, Eric Escobar, or Brian Myers, and just different guys like that. But like, I was never like the curtain jerk. I was always stuffed somewhere in the middle of a card full of like Undertaker, Hardy Boys, Triple H, Edge and Christian, Big Show, like all these ultra heavy hitters, and there's little old me stuffed somewhere in the middle of it. And we always got a good reaction, like coming in the back, and whether it was Steamboat or Malenko or Arn Anderson or IRS or whoever was my producer, they always like, good job, kid. Looked really good. Crowd was happy. You guys are in one piece. Good stuff. I get the little happy face on my report, all that stuff. So I don't think it had anything to do with work rate, but who knows? Who fucking knows?
I was so like Vince got mad about his own like decision. You know what I mean? Like he shouldn't have been a babyface, like that kind of thing.
Maybe. I don't know. But
how was Vince? Was he nuts?
He was cool to me. He was nice to me. Like you could see he was intense. Like you could see he was. But he was nice to me. So just from horse's mouth, what interaction I had with him, he was fine. Like he was kind of funny. Like he was. So like I've told this story before, but like when we're coming up from FCW, and I guess like different guys were coming up, and Vince kept on getting annoyed with him and sending them back down. And he sent like a memo down to Steve Kern and Dr. Tom and stuff. Said, "Give me 5 fucking guys that are ready to go that I don't have to do anything to, and guys that are TV ready now." And I was the very first pick. Then it was Ziggler, Swagger, Byron Saxton, and DJ Gabriel, who was this big jacked up British dude, really nice guy. And so Dr. Tom was giving us all advice on like what to do when we had our sit down with Vince and all that jazz. And I always was like, I was a martial arts guy, so I did so many karate tournaments stuff barefoot. I like to train barefoot, even though my gimmick isn't a barefoot gimmick. I just enjoy training barefoot for the most part. Like I would wear boots sometimes, and I'd go barefoot sometimes. And I was always in flip-flops. I kicked my flip-flop out before I get to the ring. And even Kern would like laugh. He'd see me out, just after we get cut for the day, and he'd see me out jogging. Like I'd jog to the beach or whatever, and I'd be jogging in flip-flops. He's like, only you are out there doing your cardio in flip-flops. Like ridiculous. And so, when Doc was talking to Ziggler and Swagger and Saxton, all these guys, he's like telling them, oh, try this or do this or do this or avoid this or blah, 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 blah. And my big pivotal thing from the good doctor, from Tom Pritchard, was when you meet Vince, wear shoes. And I was just like, yes, sir, Dr. Tom, sir. And so I went to this super janky flea market, and I got these shiny plastic, purpley, metallic, snakeskin, ridiculous, stupid shoes. They cost me like $5 or $10, whatever they were. Like, they were so cheap, but they looked like ridiculous. Kind of, a la Michael Hayes, just like kind of super like intergalactic pimp kind of looking stuff.
Yep.
And I just, again, pinching pennies because we weren't making much. It's not like how it is now, especially with developmental. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep on sniffling, but my allergies are driving me bonkers. So anyway, so I show up in these ridiculous purple shiny shoes. Like everybody in the hallways, like everybody from Kane to Hornswoggle to you name it, just everybody was like, I really like your shoes. And I'm thinking like, is this fucking rib? Like, wow, this is ridiculous, So I go and I sit down, have my meeting with Vince and Johnny Ace, who seems to be the recurring theme of this discussion.
Yes.
And Vince McMahon takes one look down, looks at me, and says, I really like your shoes. I'm like, there you go.
Thank
There
you.
you
Yeah.
go. So I'm like, thanks. It cost me a whopping $5 or $10 US. So there you go.
I love that.
Yeah. I don't know how Johnny Ace keeps on coming up into this, but
Yeah, I like it. But with Vince and like just how he is he Mr. McMahon? That was like the big question on the Netflix.
he seemed like it, but I mean, but he was that guy, but he seemed to be on my side. So like he was excited for me to kind of, he had ideas and this and that. And when we talked, I told him about the sideshow stuff, but I know he liked, wrestling starting in the carnival. So instead of saying freak show or sideshow or circus, I said carnival, just to sort of put it in his terms, And so I guess that's what got his wheels turning. So when he came up to me like the next day, and we were at like maybe I think this was Unforgiven the first day, and the next day at like Raw, he's just like, got an idea. I'm like, okay, but you're going to be Carney. Kizarny, it's Carney for Carney. You get it? Like, yep, yes sir, yes sir. And I remember just thinking kind of like, well, I might not have picked that, but you know, again, having like one of my basics coach Ron Hutchinson on my shoulder, he would always just taught us be a good soldier. What the promoter wants is what the promoter gets. So do what you're told, and that's what I did. I'm like, okay, well, I was just going to make that as best as I could make it. And I will say this about the Kizarny character. So I chose to look like that. Like you can hear me. I don't have a super deep voice, but I don't have like a high, fluffy, pitched, you know, silly voice either. And the director kept on telling me, like, you sound too scary. Like, higher your octave so you can. So I went from I am Kizarny to I am Kizarny to I am Kizarny. I'm Kizarny. You know, like it sounded so Alvin and Chipmunks, and I hated that. And to this day, when I hear it, I hear that like squeaky Alvin and Chipmunks version of my voice, and it just drove me bonkers. And I just thought, like, if I was a heel, speaking Carney is going to irritate people. I don't think you want an irritating babyface. But again, like, what did I know? You know, compared to Vince or whatever. And I'm going to blow my nose again really quickly. You won't even know that I'm gone. Look, everybody, look, what's up? Oh, what's up there? There. Oh.
Yeah, he's still there.
Hey,
Trust me.
Hey, I'm here.
There you go.
But yeah, so I think like, so for people that liked it or didn't like it, like, just know that I was just doing what I was told to the best of my abilities. And I will say that, you know, especially for the people that didn't like it, and I can appreciate why they didn't. I will say that, you know, there's people there for a year or 2 years that you don't even remember were ever there. And if you saw one match of mine on TV and you still can either like me or hate me to this day, I must have been memorable.
Yeah, very true.
So,
yeah, there you go. Everybody remembers Kizarny.
So I suppose I do too. So I don't have any, like, I'm a big boy. I can make my bed and sleep in it, you know, but like woulda, shoulda, coulda, you know, I could do things different, you know, but I can't. I don't have a time machine, and there's that. So, you know, I took what I learned from that, and I took what I learned from before that, and I took what I learned after that, and I just try to go through life doing as best I can. And I think Dr. Tom, you know, he used to always say it, like, he's like, I make a good coach because I made every mistake in the book. And mistakes are the, you know, the stepping stones to knowledge. Because I never learned anything from my, you know, successes, so, which I can appreciate. And,
yeah, great point.
Yeah. I will joke with the young wrestlers. I'll tell them communicate. You know, really be very communicative in the ring. So communication is key. I learned that from my practice wife, and they all go, oh, they're all cringy for me cracking my old man caveman jokes and whatever. But it's true. Like, you don't communicate with your dance partner, you know, you're going to be dead in the water. So that's why I don't get how these guys just blindly memorize and just get to it. What if one guy forgets and then it's just a house of cards? You know, like, I don't shut up in there. I'm like Mrs. Doubtfire, or Mary Poppins. Like, I'm just Mr. Momming my way through the whole fucking match, talking to dudes and telling them, all right, do this, less of this, more of this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not even necessarily calling in spots. I'm calling like, check your teeth, shake your fist, like, check your head, look at your finger, oh shit, shake your fist, you know, all that kind of, like. And I might not tell them this punch is coming. I would tell them, like, they'd see this. This is the non-verbal call. So you see this punch coming. There you go. I would just say, go to the turnbuckle, and they would go to the turnbuckle. And I would tell the referee, tell them to move, and then I'd come running at them, and they'd move, and just stuff like that, you know. So it's not rocket scientist. It's not rocket science. It's just
good communication.
Way of communication, you know. But there you have it. And I'm glad me and my practice wife weren't great communicators, because then I wouldn't have met my soulmate and my for realsies foreversies wife, who was made a little off-screen cameo in this discussion. So you know, everything I guess happens, you know, for a reason.
What was your name supposed to be, though, in WWE?
What now?
What was your name supposed to be? Like, before they gave you Kizarny, like, what was it going to be?
I was Sinn Bodhi already.
You were? Okay.
And I spelt it differently, because just the Carney in me kind of thought, well, you know, I just knowing how temperamental things were, you know, with talent getting released or whatever, I just spelt it differently. So in case I got canned or whatever, then I could spell it the way I wanted to spell it, you know. So like I spell Bodhi phonetically, like Bowdee, where I spell like my Bodhi, I spell it like Bodhisattva, like it's like Bodhi, like the tree. It's a Buddhist word. It's a short form of a Buddhist word that means without hate, greed, or delusion. I got that from Patrick Swayze in Point Break. Like you never knew what his character's name was. They just called him the Bodhisattva. And so they short, like the other bank robbers, the other surfer guys, shortened the Bodhisattva into Bodhi. But you never knew, like, you know, like there's Johnny Utah, and there was the other guys or whatever, but you never knew what Patrick Swayze's name was. They just referred to him as Bodhi or the Bodhisattva. And I thought that was just super cool. I thought like I understood their mindset in that movie. Like you know, like as a heel or a babyface, you want to connect. You want to have a rhyme or a reason of why you're doing what you're doing. Like Thanos has a reason to be a bad guy. He feels justified. Darth Vader has a reason to be a bad guy. He feels justified. Joker, Lex Luthor, etc. Any good villain feels like the hero of their own narrative, you know?
Yep.
So I felt like Patrick Swayze kind of had a pretty valid argument. Like, I don't want to be some dumbass sheep just buying everything on Fox and CNN and just doing what I'm told and punching the clock and doing this and doing that and whatever. Like being a wrestler is sort of being a nomad or a cowboy. Like I go as I please. Like I come and go as I want. And that Bodhi character really, really, really spoke to me. And I'm really not in a rush to go rob any banks or anything, but I'm certainly was always in a rush to do what I wanted.
Great movie.
I look at it like a polite anarchist. Like I want to do what I want. I'm trying not to hurt anybody along the way.
Love that movie. Another great movie. Rambo, Point Break. You're on fire with these movies today. Yeah, they're all great.
Got the good stuff. Got the good stuff.
Now going back, as you said, three things everybody always mentions was the WB, the Vince, and the new church. Whatever happened with the new church? How come it didn't expand to more? There should have been more new church.
I couldn't tell you. Just like the Kizarny stuff is like breaking up with somebody without any closure. Like I'm buddies with Jim Mitchell and Wolfie D, aka Slash, to this day. Shane Douglas, you know, like we're all buddies. I'm closest with Wolfie, and I get along great with Mitchell and Shane. I see Jim Mitchell once in a while when I do shows or when I coach in Orlando. He's down in that area. But Wolfie and I, we text all the time. We send each other silly stuff, you know, all sorts of silly business. But I think Wolfie's got his share of injuries and whatever. But I bugged him for years to do stuff, and he was just always just sort of wanting to just relax, and I appreciate that. I think he was kind of like he was over it, so I never wanted to bug him about it. But I'd tag with him tomorrow if we wanted to. You know, so it's not that we don't like each other; we get along great. Like, again, we send each other silly memes or little dumb articles or little whatevers, you know, just about every day. But after TNA, like we did 2 or 3 shows together. And weirdly, the last time I physically saw him, Conrad Thompson had both of us booked as producers and as wrestlers on Ric Flair's last match, that show. So we were both producing various matches, and we were wrestling. We wrestled in that bunkhouse battle royal, and me and Wolfie and Bubba Dudley were the agents for the battle royal. So we literally thanked Conrad for kind of inadvertently putting the new church on purpose by accident in the same match. You know, he was Wolfie, aka Slash, and I was Sinn. So we were us, and we just agreed, like, hey, we're gonna hit each other out there. We're gonna be nice to each other. What are we gonna do? And we both kind of were like, well, we'll see. You know, so we won't hit each other 100%, maybe. So that's kind of how that went. And before that, it was years and years before that, we did one of those like one night stand TNA pay-per-views.
Yeah.
Bruce Pritchard was talking about that, where he was so mad at me. I'm like, I kind of jokingly like, it was all Al Snow's fault. I just didn't want to throw Al under the bus because I love Al, you know, but like Al booked me to do one of these, it was like a hardcore pay-per-view or something. And at that time they were filming a bunch of pay-per-views like in a row, like just to get him in the can for whatever overseas obligations or whatever it was. And so he goes, yeah, I want you to come and do some of your weird stuff. I said, okay, well, I can bring this. He goes, no, I don't want to know. I trust you. Just bring your weird shit. I go, okay. So I brought a couple things, and one of which was the firecracker tie. And I'm walking around with with the fucking thing on my neck for about a half an hour before I ever wrestled. I saw Al, I saw D'Lo, I saw various producers. Nobody said anything, so I'm like, okay. And I went out there, and like the way that gag works is like it shoots that way. It doesn't shoot down or it towards me. It shoots out.
Right.
And we didn't Iggy it with the pyro guys, and they were certainly pissed, and which flipped out or freaked out Brother Love, and then he got hot. I'm like, I didn't do anything, you know. Like, you can get mad if you want, but like, I was kind of over it. I'm like, what are you not going to book me again for another 100 years? Like, whatever. And the last thing I was ever going to do was say Al Snow said it was okay. Like, I'm not going to throw my buddy under the bus. I think now is long enough time. This was like maybe 2014 or whatever. So I think I've let the statute of
limitations.
The statute of limitations run out on getting Al some hot water for that business. But yeah, I was just like, all right, well, I'll just take my check and be on my fucking way. And that was it. But I've done that plenty of shows throughout the years, zero incident. But I think it just scared the pyro guy was pissed. And then as soon as he realized what it was, he goes, oh, well, that's cool. I wish you just told me. I'm like, all right, I didn't know. I like told the producers, like, here, this is what I have, and nobody said anything. So I just thought, okay. And that was that. So again, we're not sending somebody to the moon. We're just jumping around in fucking sparkly MDs. So there you have it.
So you wouldn't be opposed to some more new church?
I would love it. I would thoroughly enjoy it. I think I don't know that I would try to doll myself up into like the creepy outfit or anything that I did wear back then. Like, I would authentically be me, but it's just like, it would be like, you know, the Beatles when they started, and they all had the little bowl haircuts and the little zoot suits or whatever they were called, you know, and then later on, then, you know, Lennon had his little round glasses and his long hair, and Paul McCartney had his, you know, a different haircut, and this and that and this and that. So they just evolved. So, you know, I would be super happy to tag with any version of Wolfie D, aka Slash, and I'd be happy to be managed by any version of Jim Mitchell. And hopefully, I like to think they'd be happy to tag or manage whatever version that I'm displaying at the time. I get chronically bored. I always have to just change things because my artsy brain is always just go, 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 go.
Now, as we hit the wind down and head towards the finish here, what's next for you? Like, what? Because it seems like you said, you're always out and about, you're booked all over. But what's actually next?
I've done little bits here and there. I've been behind the scenes a bit at some of the bigger companies or whatever. I really enjoy coaching at the PC. That has been one of my favorite things that I've done. But what I would like to sort of saddle into is like doing what I do now, but specifically for like a major company. Like, I would like to be a player coach. Like WWE, you know, I can't disagree with anything that Triple H does because he's Triple H. Like, he's awesome, you know. But I would think like he's got to know, like, he wants to invest in these younger athletes. I get it. That makes sense. But he's got to know, like, he comes from a time where like older grizzled guys led younger guys and groomed them and polished them and called those carpenters. You know, the older grizzled guys built the younger guys.
Yes.
So like guys like myself, or even, and bless them, Samuel Shaw, Dexter Loomis, you know, he's in the Y at 6. Again,
Yep.
Got my fingerprints all over that. You know, I'm very proud of that. But like, they almost didn't want to have Dexter in there because he's like mid-30s. I'm like, that fucking guy is so athletic. He's so smart. He's so creative. He's so nice. He's an asset any way you cut it in a locker room. Why would you not want to have that guy as a player coach? Like, a lot of coaches, like, I'm, knock on wood, I'm healthy. I'm old enough where I wrestled with a lot of those 80s guys, but I'm young enough that I can still get down. I can still blow up a 21-year-old, 25-year-old, no problem. So like, Dexter is in 1,000 times better shape than I am, and I'm in pretty darn good shape. And so, like, why would you not want to capitalize on having a guy with those kind of reps under his belt, you know? So I think, like, really not in a rush to go dive on anybody, or I'll catch a dive, no problem. But getting guys that are in my sort of weird unicorn age, in my boat of like being in locker rooms, full of guys that are no longer here, that are, you know, the wrestling gods that really showed us the tricks of the trade. Like, when you lock up with me, you know, by osmosis, you're getting a lot of that. Like I remember locking up with Tommy Dreamer one night, and he was just like, "Fuck!" It was like locking up with Dennis Condrey. Like, you were so smooth and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, well, gosh, thank you, Mr. the Dreamer. You know, like bringing that kind of stuff. Like when these young guys, when they study their game tape, they study YouTube or Peacock or the network or whatever they got. You know, they see it, their eyes perceive. They hear it, their ears perceive. The missing food group is the touch. So guys like me, or a Scotty Too Hottie, or a Jerry Lynn, or a Hurricane, or an Ace Steel, and so forth, Adam Pearce, guys like that, who've been in the ring with those guys and are still young enough to get down. So like when we lock up and we're hitting you or getting hit or whatever, like you will by osmosis feel how like the Midnights or the Rock and Rolls, or especially guys, rest in peace, Bobby. But I mean, a lot of those guys are just not here anymore, or they're too old that they can't really go. Like Ricky Morton and Robert, they're machines out. They're going to go for him 100 years. But like, from King Kong Bundy to Kamala, to the Road Warriors, like Steiner Brothers, like all these dudes, Jerry Law, like I've been in the ring with all these guys and then some, tons and tons and tons of them. And I couldn't help but just learn a shit ton of really sneaky, awesome tricks, how to make it look good, how to tell a story, how to keep each other safe, all this kind of stuff. So I can do that for the young guys. So I would really like to taper in, whether it's for AEW, whether it's for TNA, whether it's for WWE or wherever, NWA, like just want to feed my family. Like I'm very much in the mindset of Jake the Snake. Like I don't need a championship belt. I'm not that guy. And no disrespect to people that have this mentality, but like people like, well, if you're not trying to be the champ, why are you in this business? There's plenty of other, like there's only one champ, per show. And then there's a couple of like sub champs, whatever, your Intercontinental and your European and tag. But essentially a fistful of championships at a company full of 50 to 100 people or more. So there's plenty of other roles that just to have that gold. And Jake, I remember when I was first riding with Jake, and I said, how come we never got a title run? How come we never got a title? And he didn't ponder and think about it. He just looked right at me and said, never needed it. I didn't need a title to get me over. Like he was a carpenter. He was building guys to feed to Hogan. So I kind of thought about that. And I thought, I know a guy like me, just with all this, whatever, I think I would look almost silly with the title belt. I don't need a title belt. Like I'm happy to put a champion under my knife and let that champion fight up and defeat, creepy, scary guy, whatever. That's easy storytelling. But like, I don't mind being a carpenter building young guys, and I can, bring all of that skill that I learned, wrestling the wrestling gods from the 80s and bringing it to the now and mixing. Like I'm not just a hardened old school crotchety, whatever. Like I'm very in the middle about old school and new school. I'm very much Jeet Kune Do, whatever works, be open-minded, and finding like the best ways to innovate and tell stories and so forth. I like to think out of the box. And again, another friend of mine, a comedian, magician, rest his soul, amazing Jonathan, he would always be like, man, you are so far out of the box. You're across the street from across the room of where they keep the box. And, that was another championship belt mentally for me to have a compliment, have the respect of somebody that was such an evil genius. Like he was sort of the Jackie Chan to Jake the Snake's Bruce Lee. He was the funny version of Jake the Snake. Like you can't get anything by either of those guys. They're just so cerebral. And to be able to keep both of those guys on their toes was always like the ultimate compliment. So I think, short story long, to answer your question is, I think being a player coach, we kind of joke and say like, good coaches will answer questions to things you don't even know to ask yet. So let me take a young guy for a spin, smooth them out, spur them, put the brakes on them, spur them, put the brakes on them, giddy up, do this, do that, and then get them ready to make money with the champion. I'll keep them safe while they learn their mistakes. I'm strong enough and smart enough and patient enough to take the hits from a clumsy green guy and keep myself safe while they're learning their craft off of my spine. Some guys just don't have the temperament for it. Like I could never play hockey. I was Canadian born. I'd see guys get checked in the boards. I'd think I would just throw my gloves off and just beat the shit out of that guy with that stick and then chop his head off with my fucking blade, with my skates. I thought, how can you do that? Oh, it's just part of the game. And I never understood that until pro wrestling, when I was just like, I was always very patient. When some young guy would slug me, I hear, oh, I'm so sorry, coach. That's all right, you asshole. Keep going. Do this, do that. And so I think I would enjoy to do that, just to perform.
Where can everybody find you, social media wise?
All of my social media is Sinn Bodhi. My Twitter, my Facebook, my Instagram is SINNBODHI. Sinn with 2 N's, Bodhi like the tree.
All right, awesome. Sinn, thank you so much for all the time. We finally got this done, but thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And everybody listening, I appreciate you listening in. I hope I amused you. And wherever you are on planet Earth, especially, I don't know when this is going to air, but if you're in Florida and you're in North Carolina, please, everybody, be safe, be smart, and be kind.